Hello, everybody. My name is Colin. I also go by Clanum. If you've never seen my channel, welcome. Obviously, there's things that are here that aren't exactly the same type of title that I have right now, but we're kind of working on something new here. And like I said, if you've seen the title of the video, this is about AI. And if you live underneath a rock right now, generative AI is kind of taking an overall accelerating rise in usage. From small coding tasks to taking entry-level jobs in multiple industries and creating multiple media forms, making waves towards replacing many creative roles in music, art, and everyday content. And many billion-dollar companies are investing in this growth of this frontier. For better or worse, basically, the age of AI is coming. And there's no stopping it or slowing it down, especially in the US, especially after the acts that the Trump administration took to ensure its uninterrupted growth. If you don't know anything about it, there was a policy that was put on the floor saying that they want to have AI be uninterrupted. There will be no lawsuits formed against it, basically. And one of my favorite pastimes is actually getting on Reddit. So on Reddit, I'm actually a part of many different communities. One of them being Myers-Briggs, which has nothing to do with this video, but it talks about both sides of AI, and that being an argument for AI art and an argument against AI art. That means anti-AI, AI art is not art, AI wars, defending AI art. Those are all the different Reddit groups that I join, just because I like, seeing the different sides of the argument. And obviously, it was a lot of argument, a lot of calling people names. I don't know what Luddites is. I think that's a new term. But I kind of want to talk about the different things that come about AI. And I would love to talk about the different studies and the implications that AI has on society, that being environmental or social. But I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about in this video in particular is the effect on the process of creation, which will tremendously change the way content is made, that being movies, videos on YouTube, art you experience day to day, especially if you get on Pinterest. I get on that a lot. I see basically a bunch of AI art, and I kind of wanted to talk about the previous ideas that I had about it, but also the creative potentials and the creative downfalls that it has, because everything has its downfalls, everything has its positives. It's kind of like a two-sided argument, but overall I think what we're really seeing is the end of creativity. So basically, some previous ideas I had, and I'm gonna walk all the way back to 2023. I think that was the first time that we actually really talked about what AI was doing and how it's kind of totally transforming the way that we create, and especially in the art community. A lot of the things that we talked about in our classroom was the fear that we had for AI basically replacing artists. And I would like to say that that fear kind of went away, and there's different things that really happen when AI is made or AI art is put into the conversation. But one of the key things that really made me not really worry about it in the beginning was AI art is just too unrealistic. It didn't have good enough quality to replace artists. And that was when they were still making six fingers. I don't know if you've seen the art that came from AI during that time. They had six fingers. Sometimes they could make a full face, but it was basically modeled off of art that they would find online, on Instagram, from different companies. That's how generative AI and the art that you see was formed, because they had to train it basically, which creates a whole debate on that end. But in the process of creation, AI art was just too unrealistic. It wouldn't be able to replace AI, or it wouldn't be able to replace artists. It was just too unrealistic. But over time, it got better, as most things do. And then my way of seeing it changed as well. I felt like AI art could definitely replace people, but I found that AI art rids itself of all of creativity. Creativity can only come from humans. That's the other thing that I started to think. And I say that only because it didn't really feel creative. There was nothing there that was new. And creativity can only come from the amounts of different things that we have going on in our heads and how we want to tell our stories, the things that truly matter when it comes to entertainment and making new content, making art. Because if everything was a replication of previous things, we wouldn't really be in an innovative time. So, with all that being said, eventually I found myself in 2025 getting on Reddit and actually evolving the way that I see things. And it's definitely evolved. I think that I kind of had a really immature way of seeing things at the time. And now that I've been able to see both sides, I understand that AI is more than what it has been. And that is, AI is creating a new era of expression. Now, I would say hear me out, but this is something that is kind of like a given. And I feel like when it comes to creativity, this is something that is really important, that art of expression. And just recently I saw a video of oil paints moving to create scenes that we could never before see, because of the sheer nature of paint and what it does. You wouldn't be able to catch it falling at the same rate as an ocean, or you wouldn't be able to catch a wave being made with paint. But now you can. With this technology, we can basically make anything, like a realistic Bubble Buddy that you see from SpongeBob, or making a cake move like rubber, like we can make it into a rubber man just like Luffy. Creating sheerly illogical things, but they'll fundamentally change the way ideas can be expressed. This will turn into creating an age where things can be created to a degree we have never seen before. A level of expression that basically transcends our own. We can't really do the things that AI does because we are based in reality. Of course, we can animate it, we can definitely try to make things handmade, but because of the evolving rate of technology, we now see a way that we can create things that are fundamentally unreal. And I think this way is kind of like creating more potential creative outlets. And another thing that also doesn't really have to be argued is AI is simplifying the process of creation. What I'm going to do here is imagine how long it takes to create videos and animation. For those who actually don't make content like I do. Imagine how long that takes. Now visualize an accelerated rate which people have turned towards the media. And I mean going from television to streaming to YouTube to a lot of kids watching YouTube right now. There are a lot of kids who just don't watch TV at all. And there are a lot of kids who have iPads. There's so many different ways in which technology has taken over our lives. Now try to picture how much can be produced simply by involving AI. That's a lot. It's a lot. A lot of content can be made now, comparatively to in previous times when we can only make so much at a certain rate. Now you see content every day. And it's because of this AI and the accelerated rate at which content creation has exploded. artists right now are using AI to not fall behind this AI burst, and so are content creators and business owners. I saw an animator on One Piece talk about how much AI they have started to learn. And this is only the beginning. I'm sure animators everywhere will find other ways to keep up with the AI that we've found ourselves having now. And we needed animators logically back when animated projects started, because we can only do it hand drawn, and then it turned into we can make it digitally. Now we can basically bypass that whole process of interpolating. Now that animated projects will take less time to make, we'll probably no longer need those animators. And of course that can be seen as a bad thing, but in turn this will increase the magnitude of creative projects and animations. A lot of what I've been seeing now is indie projects starting. There's so many indie projects, and there's a lot of animations that are being made that aren't from Disney. We're seeing a change real time in how animation is talked about, with the rise of animation within the East, and how we're getting more anime and a little bit more of culture that isn't in America. Now I'm strictly speaking for Americans. Globally, you can see that Nezha right now is at the top of the charts. Usually you'd see Disney. Disney is now on a downfall, and you see more projects that are diverse, that are sporadic in the ways that which the studios actually make the charts. Right now, I think a lot of Sony animations are getting more attention, and this is something that is unprecedented, at least for the last 20 years. So we're seeing a real-time change in how projects are being moved. They're shifting from being a monopoly to being something that everybody can create. And I'm sure that's something that AI will have something to do with as well. So, we talked about the creative potentials. Now let's talk about the one pitfall that I know is definitely going to be the case. AI art rids itself of the process within creation, which dawns more creative outcomes. Another pastime of mine is watching self-help and creative videos on YouTube. One of the creative videos that I watch, it's a video by Lo-Fi Cinema. They're talking about how you can have a creative outcome come from the film or having the absence of that technology. One of the things that he talked about was Jaws, and how the director didn't have the robotic shark that we all know during the beginning parts of the film. They had to find another way to create that different type of vibe that you would see for drama and, eventually getting eaten by a shark. So instead, they used the camera work and they used music to create that different vibe, that different atmosphere. And of course, breakthroughs come from more at your disposal. Like, I will never say that you can't have a breakthrough because you simply have more. But genuine creativity is born from solving problems, and that was the idea of the video. It's transcending different ideologies. Another thing that I learned recently, in order for ideas to have been born within the world, somebody had to come up with something that was absolutely unprecedented. They would get ridiculed in some way. I'm sure the person who said, "Yeah, I'm about to drink from a cow," was looked upon as a weirdo. But delusion funds our whole world economy, because innovation is born from the ideas, not the creation itself. And innovation is the core principle of creativity. So, in short, the less ideas you have, the less creative outcomes you can possibly experience. And once you take away that whole process, you kill that creativity. So within making art, you will constantly be making the thing with hand. So of course this thing is going to take time. And the more time you spend on that project, the easier it is to find its downfalls, the easier it is to innovate a new way to creating it, the easier it is to interact with people and feel out the way that it can be interpreted. And that is part of that creative process. That's especially part of the creative process that you experience in art school. And what that does is it's fundamentally changing the way that you think to make you more creative, to give you more to experience, to unlock the things that you absolutely never got to experience in school, especially for those who are from my group, Gen Zers. We never got to experience the way that we can use the creative side of our brains, unless you had an art class, unless you had something that can fundamentally open the pathways for your creative brain. But we always had to do things that involved testing. We followed patterns. We never followed innovation. And creativity comes from the process of making art. You have to make it. A lot of my work never ended the way I envisioned. And yes, with AI, you don't have to deal with that creative process. And you can change your prompt and fundamentally change the way that the result is made. But you can never change the process. And that process is what is driving a lot of creativity, a lot of the way that innovation, problem solving, critical thinking, a lot of the way that your brain works comes from the process. If you don't feel the process, you can't really develop those skills. Building your art or your work piece by piece is how we have evolved. You can always create new meaning for your results for those who use AI, but experiencing the process of creation is different, which changes the way you create as a whole. So sometimes the less you have, it's better. So I think that there's going to be an end of creativity as we know it. Of course, it'll take new shapes, especially with investments we have going into it already. Art is evolving at an explosive rate due to AI, and I would go so far as to call it art. But if our mind is actively getting replaced by a tool rather than being enhanced by it, you're only experiencing the end result. It's just another cheap way of dopamine. Your creation is not creative or artistic, but it's a distraction. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know if you enjoyed. Like, comment, especially comment, because I would like to have this be a conversation. I don't want it to be like an end-all be-all, but I do think that creativity will definitely end in some ways. Those who experience AI and the way that it can create will fall to the idea that they can create so much, and it will become less of a tool and more of the way their mind works. And that's not what we want for artists to have.